Hi guys, this is Mike. Which is the simplest 3D animation software for Mac? Well, in my opinion, it's Cinema 4D. Cinema 4D is broken down into 4 modules. You can get Prime, which pretty much has the very basic core of components that you would need for 3D. Modeling, animation, sculpting. And then you get into Broadcast, which has the main component of animation that we have is MoGraph, and that does a lot of the motion graphics that you'll see in Broadcast. You also have Visualize, which is a lot for visualizing architecture and medical animations. And then you have Studio, which is everything that Cinema 4D has to offer. All the animation, all the MoGraph, all the scripting, everything is available all in one package. So you have the ability to choose which component that you want that fits your particular needs. So to answer the question, which is the simplest to use in 3D animation for a Mac, I personally use a Mac. I personally use Cinema 4D. So I feel like Cinema 4D is probably your best bet for 3D animation. It's pretty much known for its ease of use and its simplicity. Just for modeling, it's very easy to start, to just jump right in and start working. Obviously, any 3D program has a bit of a learning curve. If you're completely new to 3D, it will take a little bit of time to understanding some of the tools and the concepts within 3D. But it is pretty much known for its ease of use. If you have a designing background or as a designer like I have been, a graphic designer, a web designer, and then 2D animation, that's pretty much been my background, and being able to start working in a 3D program has been some difficulty, especially with modeling. It was the first time I've ever done any modeling before, except for maybe Bryce. I also used Strata 3D back in the day. But jumping right in, it's really just a pleasure to work with in Cinema 4D. It's also known for having being very stable. I have never crashed on Cinema 4D since I've used it. I have had some slowdown within the viewport, and that's a very easy fix because you have a level of detail that you can adjust within the viewport. So if you're having any slowdown effects with your animation, where you have lots of objects, lots of complex geometry that you're animating, you can then lower that level of detail in order to keep your viewport performance pretty good. But like I said, I've never crashed. I've never had a crash from doing any animation. Now that's not to say that you might have some plugins, like Turbulence FD or some other animation plugin that might cause a crash, but Cinema 4D itself is very, very stable. So in terms of 3D animation, there is a whole layout that you can use within Cinema 4D, but you don't even have to get to that complex level. You can just start off just in the startup layout and have your own object, whatever you want to add in, and then you can go to the coordinates, and that's just basically where the object is moving within 3D space. So if you have an object and you just add a keyframe for that area, and if you're not familiar with 3D, these concepts are not too difficult to understand. But we have an X, Y, and Z coordinate system. So you have your X, which is moving in this direction. You have your Y, moving up and down in this direction. and then you have your Z moving back and forth. So what you would do if you wanted to animate something very simply, you would just give this a keyframe within this timeline here. So to do that, you would command click on a Mac, since this is an animation for a Mac, and that would add in this keyframe. You can see this little blue mark on your timeline. And then you would move forward in your timeline, move your object that you want to move, and you can see now that this icon has, or this X coordinate has changed. You see it moved from red to yellow. So that means that this is ready to receive a new keyframe. And we move this a little bit in this X, and you would just add in another keyframe. To do that, you would just command click on this little button, and you can see now it's turned red. So now we have 2 keyframes, and we can just move along, scrub along the timeline, and see this animate. Or you can simply just push play, and it animates that object. Now you also notice, if I rotate around in our viewport, you have this little bit of a dotted line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the camera back a little bit, just using the scroll wheel, and I'm going to pull this all the way to the end of our keyframe, end of our timeline. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our coordinate system, and I'm going to make this a little bit longer, and then command click. One reason why I did that is so I can show you this this pathway and how we view the animation in Cinema 4D. So now if I pull this back, you can see that now we have a bit of an animation and how it animates through space within the viewport. So it's very simple to just start getting into animation within Cinema 4D. There are lots of other programs that you can use, but in my opinion, if you're looking for something that's simple to use, to get right in and start animating, very basically, obviously, as you move forward, you may want to start going into the animation layout and going over a lot of these different things that we can do to make the animation speed up, do different motion and different animations. And then if you want to get into more complex procedural animation, then you would go into MoGraph, excuse me. And once you're ready to do that, then you can simply upgrade to, say, Broadcast or the Studio package within Cinema 4D. So if you want to see the motion graphics, you would just go to MoGraph, and then you have various options in order to make procedural animation. Now, what is procedural animation? It's different from timeline animation. If you use something like After Effects before in your past, you'll know that you control these animations within various value systems, and this will allow you to make animations without having to make keyframes. So in other words, the program calculates the animation behind the scenes and makes it in a lot more dynamic and simulated way. So maybe that sounds a little bit complex, but that's further down the line as you start using this program. For the very basics, I believe that Cinema 4D is one of the easiest to use, considering my background, considering that I haven't really done any animation before I started doing Cinema 4D other than 2D animation, which was Flash, which is now have disappeared, is vaporized in the web world, and then After Effects, which is 2D animation, which is a lot of just animating typography. So I believe that if you wanted to get into 3D animation, you would go with Cinema 4D. I put a link in the description to download project files. You can also go to astronomic3d.com to download project files from this tutorial and all the tutorials that I've made so far. Thanks for watching.